Ho, ho, ho.
Hi, and welcome to All Things Cozy with Matt
and Jillian.
We are a bi-weekly podcast about everything that is warm, soft, and comforting. What do a Christmas tree salesman, a choir singer, a hitman, and an 8-year-old all have in common? No, it's not the start of a very weird holiday joke. They're all celebrating Christmas their way, baby. We're taking notes from these solo seasonal savants as we discuss their starring roles in some unconventional Christmas classics. Christmas Again, A Christmas Without Snow, Blast of Silence, and of course, Home Alone. But while these characters are riding solo, we've got the ultimate festive film dream team with us, the fezziwigs of film critics, the hosts of Linoleum Knife, a podcast of the cinema, Dave White and Alonzo Duralde. Welcome back, Dave and Alonzo. We missed you. Merry Christmas.
Oh, it's great to be back. Happy Hugo.
I always feel like it's a little gift that we get to be annual visitors to this podcast.
Yes.
Because we love being here so much. So thank you for having us.
Yeah. No, thank you for being
back
here.
At you.
I said it a million times before, and it's just true. It would not be Christmas without you on All Things Cozy. And actually, at this point, I think we have enough episodes. We could probably create a little advent calendar of Linoleum Knife and All Things Cozy collabs.
And fly off the cozy shelves.
As long as there's chocolate behind the door and not just some passage of words of wisdom or something.
Well, that's kind of our thing these days, so I wouldn't hold my breath. Before we dive into the film discussion, we want to check in with what's making us feel cozy this holiday season. Jillian, I'm going to kick it to you to start. What is making you feel cozy?
Well, this is the first time this has ever happened because I might be changing my what's making me feel cozy pick as we're recording. Because the advent calendar sparked something for me because I bought my cats an advent calendar. Don't have kids, but I have 2 cats, Reese's and Snickers. And it was such a joy to open up that advent calendar. I shake it. Sounds like treats. They come bounding down the stairs. I say, what's going to be in your advent calendar today? My partner pretends that she cares, but she's really half asleep with a cup of coffee. I make her look at it to see what's inside. But the thing that's radicalizing me is that every single day is almost the same. So I think it changes every 3 days. There's not variation of treats. I was expecting there to be a new treat for every day, but just rotates. So every time I open, I think I'm going to get a new treat. Now that I'm eating it, my cat's hard to be clear.
I don't know that you're the target demo here.
It's really for the cat parents. It's not for the cats. It's for me. And I wanted to see a new treat every time I open that little box.
Fair.
But I don't. But it's still very cozy because they've come to learn what the advent calendar is. We're on day 9.
They're learning so fast.
So all it takes is a shake.
All it takes is a shake needs to be on the box. Is there one treat in each little box or multiple? Do you have a different calendar for each cat?
No, that's really, I'm radicalizing them because I only have one calendar for them. But I also have one Christmas house for them. We got a Christmas house from Petco and it looked like Santa's workshop. And we only got one of them. So they have to take turns because they're both too big to be inside it at once.
Well, if one of them eats all the treats, he's never getting in there.
Right. So maybe next year I'll spring for 2 Christmas houses, 2 advent calendars. I don't know if I'll get it from Target, but yeah. So they have little bacon bits, little goldfish crackers. It's just exciting to see their little ears perk up when I shake that calendar. It's not all in my head, I promise.
The reason for the season.
Yes.
Well, for me, there's nothing like a Canadian Christmas, eh? My husband and I visited family in Vancouver, and between the canyon lights at Capilano Suspension Bridge, Santa's Village on Grouse Mountain, and the Vancouver Christmas Market, the city was lit up bay to inlet. It was the most Christmassy city, I think, on the face of this planet. And we visited before Thanksgiving. They were ready to go. But remember, Canadian Thanksgiving is a completely different time of the year.
Right.
They don't have the kind of conflict that Americans have to grapple with, which is trying to make sure that we keep our composure until Thanksgiving is complete. I'm jealous of their ability to just bound into Christmas when they want to towards the end of November.
That's why, like, the Hallmark shoots there. And I'm thinking maybe if they start screening Christmas movies in mid-October, maybe that's the official Canadian.
It has to be.
That's when the land rush begins.
Don't correct us, Canadians. We just want to think this. We want to believe it to be true.
Let us live in it.
I saw the vacation pics. They were stunning.
What I really loved about their Christmas market, it's kind of that traditional German market that you see in a lot of cities that are popping up. But what was funny about theirs was that every single stall ended in Haus. Oh, it was the Condell House. Oh, it was the Rosie House. And with a couple of exceptions, it had that little house. And so everyone was getting quite sick of me making that joke over and over again, like I am now, but imagine it all night. And
Well, the incense house.
Yeah, they had a karaoke house with people who were singing beautifully. And I think that goes against the spirit of karaoke, but I digress. I wanted to hear some really hideous Christmas carols.
There are a lot of underemployed TV actors in Vancouver. Do something to fill the time.
Yes. I swear everyone did look like they came off the set of a Hallmark Channel movie. I think that's just the reality that they live in there.
Oh, for sure. And more power to them. Now, was it cold enough where you could have the glug or whatever?
Oh, yeah. No, we had our glue wine. I think I'm mispronouncing that, but we had all of it.
Awesome.
Very festive. Alonzo, what's making you feel cozy this Christmas?
So many things. This is the time of year when I'm in my full bloom. I'm the cactus flower who, like, after Thanksgiving, like, my petals are wide open. But I'll tell you what's making me cozy is that I found Little Debbie Christmas tree cakes and brownies at Ralph's today, which I have not had the easiest time finding them in Los Angeles in the past. Little Debbie's very much a Southern thing, and you can still find the regular snacks throughout the year at LA Targets and grocery stores and whatnot. But the Christmas stuff, I used to have to special order. So the fact that I just stumbled upon it in the wild really just gave me this like extra little flourish of holiday cheer.
They're finally hearing your pleas.
The word is out. I think the internet has really taken them to a whole level. They now sell like a 6-foot inflatable tree cake that I guess some people just lean against the wall and use as their tree if they want to.
Each their own.
So, Alonzo, how hard have you been trying to convince Dave to get that tree in your apartment?
Oh, I like looking at pictures of it, but it's not something I feel like I need in my life. If we had a pool, I would totally want the inflatable Christmas tree as a flotation device. But as you can see our actual tree here behind me. I know
it's beautiful.
It's
It
an
is.
audio
cozy.
podcast, but trust me, we're scraping the ceiling, and it is wide enough to have every single ornament we own.
Gorgeous vintage C7
Mhm.
bulbs over a
Yes.
tree draped in ornaments, dripping.
Yes, dripping.
And a bunch of these bulbs actually are. Do you guys have we discussed the Gospel of True Tone yet?
Oh yeah, I actually spent our last episode doing a whole spiel on it, so our listeners are well versed.
Yes.
Because of you, I got one string last year,
Hmm.
and they're quite expensive, so we slow
Yeah.
rolled it. And so we got 2 more this year, and we were able to fully do archery also in True Tone
Nice.
C7s.
We're about a third True Tone, but like every year
We
go
buy a
still
new
over
strand. We buy one new strand a year because, as you said,
as a treat.
they do cost more than other lights.
Yeah.
But they're it's worth it because they last longer, and the amount of money that we're saving on our electric bill
Yeah.
is significant because of it. Yeah.
Awesome. This has been yet another free True Tone commercial. I do think we each deserve a strand to be sent to our addresses. True Tone, please.
Mail them these episodes and tell them that you are open to sponsorship opportunities. You will accept product.
Dave, what is making you feel cozy this Christmas?
Y'all are going to think I'm insane, so hear me out. For me, the definition of cozy is that I am warm and that I have a general sense of well-being. All right. I think that's a fairly decent definition because I have spent the past year getting not one, but 2 hip replacement surgeries because I had horrifying hip arthritis that shrunk my life down to nothing. And I was in 24/7 constant pain because of. Those surgeries require me to recover and do physical therapy. So I do it at the West Hollywood Aquatic Center every morning at 7 a.m. Now, I'm a morning person, so that's not the problem. I think for a lot of people, the problem would be the fact that I'm jumping into an outdoor pool at 7 o'clock in the morning when it's 45 degrees outside, which is what I'm doing. But here's why it's cozy. Number one, the feeling of well-being that I get from this is, I think it's measurable, like in some sort of objective way. I feel so good doing this exercise in the water that the recovery aspect of this is my sense of well-being. Now, luckily, this water is also warm. Not hot tub warm, but warmer than the outside. So much so that the steam rises off the pool in contrast to the cold air out in the December of Los Angeles. So when I'm stripping down to go in, I'm feeling a little cold. When I'm soaking wet coming out, I'm feeling significantly more cold. But the great Santini is in my head saying, tough it up. But while I'm in the warm pool doing my little physical therapies, I feel very cozy. And also, it's really quiet at 7 a.m. No one's shouting at you. No one's bothering you.
Children are not learning to swim.
It's peaceful. Yeah, it's not mommy and baby swim class. It's very nice. It's me and some old people, and that's great.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm
It
going to
is.
crash your pool party.
You should.
You think it's peaceful now? Wait till the cozy guy gets there. That
Show
sounds
with all his
incredible.
noodles.
I think anyone can relate to that feeling of being warm and ensconced in water, especially in the context of a chilly morning and just not even wanting to leave because
Right.
any leaving of the water is going to be hellish.
Yeah, that's the part that's less amazing. You just get used to it.
That's the ritual of it too. I think that's
Yeah.
very cozy.
Yep.
So how many more swims away are you from a full synchronized swimming routine?
Many. I'm lucky though. I have a friend who is a real swimmer who has volunteered to teach me how to swim. Because I'm a very terrible swimmer. I'm like a survival swimmer. I can reach the edge of the pool without drowning, but that's kind of it. And so he's going to teach me how to swim. It's going to happen later in like the summer of 2025. But
Yeah, most of what Dave's doing right now is like they have these little styrofoam water weights that you use
yeah,
under the surface, and he's rebuilding his core.
yeah.
Have you tried any of those classes where you do the stretching and aerobics in the water?
Yeah, I hate them.
Cross that off the list.
Yeah.
They shout encouragement, and Dave White is not about that.
I
The
see.
music, it's loud music. It happens
Oh.
later in the day, so the sun is beating down on you, and I really do hate
Yeah,
the
that
sun.
sounds horrific. I wasn't imagining that.
And they are all fitness instructors. If there are any fitness instructors listening, bless your heart. But
Slow your roll.
they're very enthusiastic and they're very encouraging and they're very loud. And I don't care for any of that. I want no one to encourage me ever. I don't need to hear, go for it, you can do it. The worst thing of all is when someone tells me, you got this. I just think, no, please stop
You
it.
don't know my life.
You don't talk to, how dare you speak to me this way?
Another thing the WeHo pool has that you might be into is pool lattes.
They do have Pilates class. Yeah.
I've been scarred by Pilates classes in Los Angeles. I know the peppy little fitness instructors, but I'm curious about me taking a yoga class in the water if that's even possible. Just to stretch. I need more stretching in my life, and doing it in cozy water might be good. But if I'm beating in the sun,
I
baking,
encourage you to do this.
screamed at, I don't know.
Maybe you can invent pool yoga, and that could be your thing.
Right. New cozy class.
Downward anchovy.
That'll have to be one of the things we try. Usually Julian and I try to challenge ourselves to a class, and we try to do a gift wrapping class to up our skills, but they wouldn't even host one in LA when they heard we were looking for one. So maybe pool yoga is a thing.
You think they'd have more classes, but only a few, and they're all
They
sold
want
out.
us in the dark so that we ruin more wrapping paper and buy more.
Let me tell you something. If you want a lesson in gift wrapping, you come over to our house because I'm a professional.
Dave White has skills. It's true.
Dave, I've scarred you with my cooking. Now I can probably scar you with my wrapping. I'll have to show you my final product.
Yeah, if you want some real horror, listen to our last episode and listen to us describe how to wrap a present.
I still have the evidence. I have photographic evidence. I'll send it to you.
I think we got a lot better, but
Put
we're a work in
ourselves out there.
progress.
Yeah.
Maybe you had nowhere to go but up.
Yes.
Back when Martha Stewart had a daily show, every year, this time of year, she would like, here's how to wrap a gift. So I just paid attention and I learned how to do it. And now I am fantastic.
You're rapping with Martha,
Yeah.
just like Snoop.
Yeah.
I actually saw one of her videos, but she wasn't doing it. It's now, I guess she's hands off. She has her minions to do that for her now. But it was wrapping a wine bottle.
That needs a box or a bag.
Yes, a bag. That's what we discovered. It's, do we really need to go the extra mile?
No.
Bags are okay. Let's lean into the bags.
And just don't even give someone a tennis racket. Be short.
Darn, there goes my present for Zendaya. Before we go into our discussion of these unconventional Christmas classics, I do want to do a quick shout out for our Patreon. You can support our show and our ability to learn to wrap presents and review candles and do episodes like we're doing today. We're talking about movies you might not have heard of before and some like Home Alone that you've definitely heard of before. You can support our show at patreon.com/allthingscozy. We have a book club if you join at the $5 a month level or more, where you can read a book alongside us and then meet with us live to talk about it. And you know you want to do that. And if you can't make those meetings, we record those as an episode so you can listen to it later. I've doubled the amount of books I've been reading. I don't know about you, Julian, but the book club single-handedly
Yes,
is like my lifeline for
absolutely.
continuing to read. And we have really fun discussions. Everyone in there is super cozy and great. Consider supporting our show and joining that book club again at patreon.com/allthingscozy. And also, we have a mug. Every year we do a limited offer seasonal mug. And the season that our mascot is in on this mug is spring. And in about 5 months, it'll be impossible to get this mug ever again. So if you do want the mug, you need to join at our pillar level. You can see all the goodies that you'll get. There's stickers and magnets, lots of other little side bonuses for joining our Patreon. So check that out.
Well, I'll know if we made it if I ever see one of our mugs on eBay.
Journalism has died and failed us. Support the creators that you enjoy and that bring meaning to your life, like Matt and Jillian.
Yes, there you go.
Well
Thank you,
said.
Alonso.
Yes.
We're also on Instagram and Facebook if you just want a slow drip of cozy content at All Things Cozy Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. All right, well, that's enough about where you can find us and support our show. Let's go to the cinema. The holidays are often painted as a time for big family gatherings, endless parties, awkward Secret Santa exchanges, but not everyone celebrates that way. Some people spend Christmas solo, either by choice or by chance, and that doesn't mean their holiday has to be any less special. In fact, these lone wolves of the most wonderful time of the year show us that going it alone can be just as meaningful, cozy, and memorable as a room full of relatives. So let's take a closer look at some films that highlight the art of a very merry me time and see what holiday wisdom we can unwrap from these unconventional Christmas tales. We're going to kick it off with Jillian's pick. Each of us picked a film to discuss together. This is an indie film called Christmas Again, and it centers on a character named Noel, a grumpy Christmas tree salesman stuck in a Groundhog Day loop of holiday drudgery. For him, December is less about decking the halls and more about surviving one lonely shift at a time. He sells evergreens to New Yorkers who wouldn't know a Douglas fir from the type of blue spruce the Obamas used in the White House. That's an inside joke if you see the movie. He finds his holiday spirit, or what's left of it, tested by quirky customers, bitter cold, and the boss man, who keeps telling him he's not turning enough conifers into coins. But when he unexpectedly helps a mysterious woman, Noel discovers that sometimes Christmas magic comes when you least expect it, like under flickering streetlights and surrounded by leftover tinsel. I'm going to pass it over to the real film critics. What did you think about Christmas Again? Were you familiar with this film before? And what do you take away from its hero's approach to a very merry me time?
Yeah, this movie came out about 10 years ago.
Exactly 10 years ago.
And we were huge fans from the jump. Kentucker Audley, who stars in the film as Noel, is also a filmmaker himself. And he put out a great line of sort of indie film related hats and t-shirts that said things like, "Nothing happens." He's a fascinating presence online, but he gives a really beautiful performance in this film. And actually, I wish I had thought of this to bring to this discussion. Jillian got there first. I was like, yes, perfect. I love this movie so much because it is very much about somebody who is, they don't lay on the exposition in the obvious way, but every so often a customer who's a return customer will be like, "Oh, that girl you're with last year, is she around?" And he's like, "Not this year." And that's kind of all you get and all you need to know. But he is very much, like you said, in this kind of like ongoing cycle of in kind of a gloomy, depressed way, even though everything around him is all fairy lights and tinsel and whatnot. And yeah, then the film does offer the opportunity of a reconnection with other people, with this woman, with the world in general. And it's just beautiful. Like it is so stripped down and economical in its making. It's very much a low budget film, but it is so moving and meaningful. It's one I've gone back to time and again over those 10 years. And the closing credits has this great song called Christmas Everywhere by a woman named Fran Alexander, who apparently recorded it for some regional label in the 50s. We've never been able to find like a copy of that single or a digital thing of it on sale in the traditional iTunes kind of way, but it's a great song and it became like part of our playlist.
And you never found it anywhere on like Spotify or like any kind of streaming like YouTube?
Somebody sent it to me on the
Oh.
DL, but like
Oh,
as far
wow.
as an official version, I've yet to find
You
it.
have to
but
be
it's
in
a-
on the black market of
Yeah.
the song to
basically,
find it.
yes. The dark web of Christmas.
We both fully agree on this film. When it came out, we reviewed it and we talk it up every year, and it is criminally underseen. It came out as a tiny little independent release, but it has a pedigree. Sean Price is
Yeah, Sean Price Williams is
Yeah.
the cinematographer on it,
Yeah.
who shot like the Safdie brothers films, I think, or he's got this incredible. I know he's done some of the guy who made the Listen Up, Philip, those films with Elizabeth Moss.
I
I'm blanking.
apologize because I'm blanking on everyone's
Anyway,
name.
the cinematographer of Christmas Again is a very big deal, and in fact is now a director himself.
And you
He-
can tell because when you watch this film, gorgeous
Yeah,
in a very low key way. And I think that when you describe it to people, they might think that it's depressing. But what we don't acknowledge enough in popular culture is the pleasure of being sad at Christmas, because there is a pleasure in sad things happening at Christmas. If you watch It's a Wonderful Life, you will understand that it is a sad movie. Up until the very last moment, it's a sad movie. I think that sad Christmas songs become people's favorites. Joni Mitchell's River is a song that people love, and you hear it at Christmas, and it ain't fun. Yeah, Fairy Tale of New York is a sad song. It's set at Christmas. Even the title lets you know what you're in for, because if it were a regular Christmas movie about regular Christmas feelings and stuff like that, it would say Christmas again. But this is Christmas, comma, again. And so you're getting a feeling from the very moment you walk in and sit down with it. I think a lot of people would watch this and maybe also think, why is nothing happening? Cinema is not just point A to point B to point C storytelling. It's mood, it's light, it's sound, it's sensation, it's the space between words, it's the space around people's bodies. And that is everything you get here. Also, he engages in my favorite cozy activity.
that's true.
He-
He swims.
He swims every day.
I was gonna say, I think we saw you going in the background a few times, doing a few laps.
This is a beautiful, sensitive, intelligent, warm-hearted film about a man who needs to regain his relationship with life.
I was terrified you guys would think that I plugged this movie, I was recommending the Disney movie Christmas
Oh, God.
Again.
I had to watch that one, Note for Deck the Hallmark, and I was like, do I have another movie with a similar title you really need to see?
This was the feature debut of writer-director Charles Pokel, who was himself a Christmas tree salesman before making this film.
Which is why I was so interested in it. And I was reading an interview with him, and when he was first exploring that premise, he talked to a bunch of different Christmas tree salesmen, and he said to them, "When do you close?" It's like, "Well, we're open 24 hours. What do you mean? We can't lock up the trees." And I thought that was really
Yeah.
funny, and just it's a spotlight on the forgotten too, because he made a point that they disappear for the rest of the year.
Right.
And so it's really highlighting almost the ghost of Christmas. And being from New York and spending a lot of my time in New York City during the holidays, I think it's probably the loneliest place on earth to be during Christmas. I think some folks might think it's, as we talked about last year, the tropical Christmas, because it's so devoid of all the fanfare around it. But I think it's the opposite, because you're just hit over the head with all the decorations, the music, the tourists. And what I like about this film, like you both of you said, it highlights that soft side, I think, of New York, that beautiful lonely side, seeing it from a different perspective and not taking it in a way that feels like you're being under attack. So I think sometimes what it feels like when you're in New York and you're sad, it can feel like an attack. But this presents a softer side to that dilemma of experiencing loneliness in New York.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, wise, and I think ultimately cozy film.
Super cozy.
Yeah, even just the way, like you mentioned, the look of it is such a feast for the eyes, for the textures and the lights.
Yeah.
And the mechanics of selling the trees, putting them in that netting, slapping them in the car. It's almost like documentary style in certain senses of just like the
Mhm.
process of selling the tree. If you just want to be in a place where someone's selling a Christmas tree, then this is the movie for you. If you just want that ambiance in your house. Now, granted, you're going to be sharing that time with a very depressed man. But if you're okay with that, it almost works like slow TV where you have just like you're in a Christmas tree lot and hanging out. And yeah, there's some other things happening
Would
too.
watch that show, no question.
You're just living in the space with the characters. And I thought that lived in atmosphere, but also like the moments of quiet reflection. There's an early scene where he connects all of the lights for the lot and looks at them and goes back to almost like engage the other two people who are on the lot with him to be like, look at what I did. Or you don't think he would necessarily say it that way, but there was an expectation. And I interpreted a look in his eye like, I want to share this moment, but they're like fast asleep. And so you just get to share this like kind of moment of solitude that is actually very sweet and cozy. These moments that you can enjoy alone, the same, if not more, than with other people.
I'm surprised this film hasn't caught on more. I guess it's not necessarily something that, yeah, let me fire this up and get into the holiday
I think a lot
spirit.
of people would level that indie criticism of like nothing's happening. Like,
Yeah, it seems it's a bit sad.
yeah, I think you really do have to luxuriate in it. So if you are going to sit down and watch it, be prepared for that pace and that tone, and just enjoy the atmosphere.
But the payoff is very Christmassy, and in its own way, it's a redemption story in terms of this person who, after the end of a relationship, is so cut off from humanity, finds a way to plug back into the world. The Factory 25 put out a Blu-ray a couple years ago, which I was very happy about for you physical media people out there. But yeah, I'm so sort of waiting for this film to really get discovered in a broader way.
Turner Classic Movies needs to get on it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I did that podcast, A Film and a Movie, a few years ago, where we would talk about a classic film and then a more recent movie that it clearly inspired, we paired this with It's a Wonderful Life because I think again there's a similar character arc for both of these guys. And in fact, when I posted it, I think the director commented on Instagram that like one of our kind of joke titles during the shoot of the film was like, "It's a miserable life."
It's funny, this film showed up in a Reddit thread recommendation alongside A Family Man starring Nick Cage. And I said to I said to Mass, like, oh, maybe you can watch a Family Man because he didn't have his film picked out yet. And I don't know, I haven't seen it, but now your groans make me avoid it.
You're better off watching the Hallmark ripoff of it with Lacey Chabert, which is the same movie where basically like she's chased her career and left her college boyfriend, and then evil Santa makes her wake up and see what her life would have been like had she married the boyfriend and they were living in the suburbs with two kids that she had to make cookies for.
That scenario pops up again and again, and an Irish Wish with Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, exactly. But they always go for the kid cookie version. I'm like, no, you had a great job.
Right.
Well, if you're interested in watching Christmas Again, you can stream it on Amazon. It's on like their app called Fandor. I think for free. I don't know.
I did a free trial. I'm probably
Yeah.
gonna get.
Yeah,
It's also on
Fandor,
Apple
the
TV.
subscription service you can get via Amazon, and yeah, they do often have a 7-day free trial.
It's
Yeah.
free on the Roku channel also.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're going to move on to our next protagonist named Zoe. And, you might ask yourself, what's Christmas without snow? For Zoe, who's a newly single mom starting over in San Francisco, it's about trying to find herself in a new city while joining a church choir to prepare Handel's Messiah. Between juggling a demanding director, eccentric choir members, and a community as fractured as her personal life, Zoe's holiday is less about mistletoe and more about finding harmony in every sense of the word. Who needs snow when you've got high notes and heartfelt moments, even if they're sprinkled with a bit of drama? And a mom who's constantly calling you to tell you to get your life together.
oof, that mom.
Alonzo, this was your choice. Talk to us a little bit about A Christmas Without Snow.
Yeah, this was a TV movie that aired in 1980. It was directed by John Cordy, who is probably most well known for doing the miniseries, The Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, starring Cicely Tyson back in the 70s. He made several TV movies, including one I'm not crazy about, also with Cicely Tyson, called Ms. Scrooge. You can imagine what that one's about. He also won an Academy Award for a documentary called Who Are the DeBolts and Why Do They Have 17 Children? He was kind of a big figure in Bay Area filmmaking. He worked with Francis Coppola. He, I think, gave 17-year-old David Fincher his first job in the film industry. So he's an interesting figure. And I saw this movie when it premiered. It stars Michael Learned, who is best known as the mother on the Waltons. And yeah, she plays a divorcee. She's moved to San Francisco. She's trying to lay down roots and get a job and get an apartment so that her teenage son can move out and join her. Who's still living back with her parents. And yes, her mom is constantly guilting her on the phone about all of her life choices. And she's in a new city. She doesn't have friends. She doesn't know anybody. And she winds up getting involved in this church choir. And so I thought it was kind of interesting. We talked about, what loneliness at Christmas time looks like. And this to me was a story of a woman who proactively decides, I don't have a community here. I'm going to find one. I'm going to make one. I'm going to join one. And she becomes a part of this choir. And yeah, they get a rather not haughty exactly, but a demanding new director played by the great John Houseman, who decides he's going to whip them into shape to do all of Handel's Messiah. And there's a great speech early on. There's a lady in the choir who's the resident diva, and she thinks she's going to get the big role. And he winds up assigning it to somebody else. And she gets very furious and dismisses them as amateurs and storms out. And he gives this wonderful speech that says, "You are amateurs." And then he explains that, the root of the word amateurs from the Latin amas, to love, that you're doing a thing for the love of it and not because you're being paid, not because it's your job, but you want to, you love it so much. And I think that applies to what's happening with Zoe. Like by the end of the film, she's even maybe finding a guy that she might start dating and see what's going on with him. But she is not the person at the end of the film that she was at the beginning. And a lot of that has to do not just with the magic of Christmas, but with her kind of actively setting out to not be alone and let loose in this big city where she doesn't know anybody.
That speech about amateurs was so moving. I was riveted. Anytime the choir director opened up his mouth, I was rapt. I had to listen. I was hanging on every word. It was just so beautifully delivered. And in that way that like a really expert teacher can pause just enough to string you along so that you're like hanging, what's he going to say next? Every word was so perfectly chosen, obviously because it was written down.
Do you guys know who John Houseman is? Are you aware of his background?
Not especially,
I'll be
no.
honest and say no.
Okay, he won an Academy Award in the early 70s for a film called The Paper Chase, where he played a not dissimilar character, a very strict Harvard law professor, and then played the role in a TV version. And he did a commercial for like some financial firm or whatever that like people really, that's how everybody knew who he was. But this guy, he and Orson Welles ran the Mercury Theater. He's a character in the movie Mank. He goes all the way back to 1930s American stagecraft and whatnot. But he became this sort of like the kind of actor that we're used to coming from the UK, but he's one of the few Americans we made, one of those sort of brilliantly stentorian guys who always sounded like he'd just extinguished his pipe and put his
Yes.
brandy snifter down to explain things to you. So yeah, he's a legend, and all of that comes into play in this film, playing this character who is a well-regarded choir director.
What I loved about this movie is that even though we're in the massive city, the world feels so wonderfully small.
Mm.
We're only in a few places, her apartment, the church, and we visit some other characters' apartments and whatnot. But for the most part, we're just in that church and it feels so cozy and small. I'm like, do I need to join a choir? I don't want to just make anyone suffer. But that was really cozy, just the camaraderie, but also her finding her footing, because it's very akin to when you move to a new place. You maybe hang out with people you probably wouldn't normally hang out with, and she's trying to find her identity. I think that's cozy in of itself.
Mm.
And so it was nice to see all those early friendships that are probably going to stick, and then there's those ones that are going to fade away.
The kind of like friend date night that she's like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to go home. You can go see a movie.
Like-
Yeah, that was hilarious. Also, that scene I told Matt I'll never recover from. I apologize, forgot her name, but that older woman, when she's talking to him about being let go from the choir, that will haunt me to the end of days.
Yeah, there's a scene where he isolates one member who's been with the choir forever and has the difficult conversation with her that she really doesn't fit in with the ambitious sound that they're going for. And she then volunteers her time and efforts to help in other ways. She's like, I can sew the
Right.
gowns and blah, blah, blah. Like, have you seen how ratty they look? And I felt watching that, Jillian, I agree with you. I was like, they don't deserve you. Get out of there.
We did this movie on Deck the Hallmark, and they were like, "Oh, in the South, you never tell the old lady who's been in the choir for decades that she can't cut it anymore. Like you are just stuck with her until the day she dies."
The thing about this movie existing in the late 1970s when there was this wave, not necessarily on television, but cinematically, of stories of women going it alone
Yeah,
because the divorce boom of the 1970s was
rebuilding their lives.
so huge.
Mhm.
We had already had an unmarried woman in theaters, and Joe Clayburgh got an Academy Award nomination for that. And so this is sort of like the made-for-TV version of an unmarried woman, but Christmas.
Yeah.
And as such, I think we think of films that are made for television, network TV, and now, of course, Hallmark films as being second tier kind of film experiences. Specifically with Hallmark, they're not even, in my opinion, they don't even have a tier. It's so awful. But this film is of such high quality and such intelligence and such care was taken in the making of this movie. The same with another great Christmas themed TV movie of the 70s, The Gathering, that I think Alonso has talked about before. This movie could have been in theaters. It is that good. It stands on its own. So when you say, it was a TV movie, I don't want people to get the wrong idea.
Yeah, that used to
from
mean
that.
something different.
Yeah. Also, I saw it when I was a kid. I was in my early teenage years because Alonso and I were both kids in the 1970s. And so Michael Learned had already become a pop culture figure for playing the mother on the Waltons. So you went to her understanding a level of warmth and maternal goodness and coziness just from her very presence. And to watch her in this film is to feel that same thing that she brings to all the work she was doing back then.
Did you guys recognize the actor who plays the clergyman, the priest of
Oh,
the
yeah, of course. It was James Cromwell.
Farmer Hoggett?
Yeah. He's so tall that you can
Yeah.
find him in any scene because he's towering over everybody.
Looming over the cast.
What was
Yeah.
also refreshing and gratifying about this was she felt no mom guilt. She was in her element. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't entertaining her mom. There's one scene where she just hangs up on her mom, and I was cheering. And that's it was really wonderful to see too, just doing her own thing.
That thing of like, I can't take care of my son until I've taken care of me, until I have to create a home here that he can be in. So to get that done, she doesn't feel like she has to apologize for anything.
Right. No wringing of hands or any of that.
Yeah. This is like a very ensemble picture. You get like all these really eccentric characters. If there's a moment this holiday season where you're feeling a little isolated and alone, this is a great one to put on because you'll be with Zoe, you're in a new place, and you're going to have to meet all these bozos, and you're going to love them and hate them in equal measure, but it will
Yeah.
keep you entertained for the duration of this film. And you can stream A Christmas Without Snow on any of the free apps. You can do Tubi, Pluto TV. Like literally, it somehow is everywhere. It's like a virus that was caught by every single free thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, it fell into the public domain, so there's a lot of versions out there, and a lot of them look crappy. Unfortunately, like I would really love for somebody to kind of sweep in and find the elements of this movie and do a nice 2K restoration or something. But
Yeah,
in
it
the
does need a little
meantime,
bit of TLC.
pretty much any streaming service you got, they have A Christmas Without Snow.
Yes. We should do a deep comparative analysis of the quality of the
There you
stream.
go.
But this one's really easy to find too, which I loved. Here's one that was not easy to find, but is a really fascinating film that I'm very excited to discuss. It is 1961's Blast of Silence. We're back in New York from our trip to San Francisco, and Christmas in New York can be a magical time, or lonely, as Julian likes to say, unless you're a hitman like Frank Bono. In Blast of Silence, Frank spends the holiday season casing targets, dodging his emotions, and making murder look as lonely as it feels. Whether he's brooding in a dive bar or wandering the festive streets with his gun and his guilt, of course, his version of holiday cheer involves more bullets than baubles. Let's just say Frank won't be caroling anytime soon, but his noir-coated holiday tale packs a punch harder than your great-grandma's fruitcake. This is found on the Free Internet Archive, by the way. So this was actually not streaming anywhere that I could find.
It's on the Criterion
It's
channel.
on the Criterion channel.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have the Criterion channel.
It's the law that fancy film critics have to subscribe.
Do you know what I had to do? This is my love of film. I watched this on the Free Internet Archive.
Yeah.
And
As did I.
the sound wasn't synced correctly. So
Oh,
I
no.
downloaded it to VLC player, and then I manually had to synchronize the
Wow.
audio.
Wow.
So I was a projectionist in some way as well as a viewer of this film.
This also got a Blu-ray release last year from Criterion. I don't know which version you saw, but they have done a restoration in the last few years and made it really crisp.
I was just an interpreter. I didn't go to the lengths Matt did. It's just right up
It's just pretend it was like a dubbed film.
Godzilla is attacking the city.
Dave, this was your choice. So
It was.
tell us a little bit about Blast of Silence.
First of all, I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
Yes, no apology needed.
Well, I'm sorry to people who want actual coziness because I've led you astray. There's nothing cozy about this movie.
I disagree,
is-
but I'll save that for later.
It is a noir in the bleakest, coldest, bone-chillingest, unhappiest sense.
Existential noir.
Yeah. It was written by and directed by a man named Alan Barron, who's still alive, by the way. He's in his 90s now.
Mm.
And as you said, Matt, he's a hitman, and he's wandering through New York at Christmas looking for his target, trying to evade the people who don't want him to hit the target, and ruining everything he touches along the way, including himself. But here's why it's great. He was such a resourceful filmmaker, and he had such a zero budget to make this movie. He didn't have any permits. So he just had people filming him in character, walking around the streets of New York, 1960. This came out in 1961. So it was shot in 1960 at Christmas time in New York. So if you're a fan of mid-century Manhattan and all of its atmosphere, you're going to luxuriate in this film, in spite of the fact that it is one of the most miserable narratives that I've seen. And I love noir. And the reason I love noir is because it is a counter story to the upbeat, peppy conformity of the post-war era. It's the stories of people who are not having a good time and quite often wind up dead at the end of the movie. And so this is that guy, that story at Christmas. It is an American Christmas story because you might not be a hitman, but you might be having this kind of miserable experience. I would compare this very strikingly to Christmas Again, because that's about a man who is lonely and trying to find his way back to life. This is a movie about a man who is lonely, and he knows he's not going to find his way back to anything good. And so
Yeah.
there's something to be said about sitting for 80 minutes. It's very short, 80 minutes with this guy and thinking about what else is out there. I'm here in my home with my wonderful tree and my wonderful husband, and I've got cocoa. You know, there ain't no cocoa in this movie.
Yeah, like as with Christmas Again, there's a woman who surfaces someone from his past, and there's the flicker of the notion that
Something good might happen.
yeah, but clearly like he is past the point of grabbing that ring to get out of the pit that is his life.
It is stark and brutal and gorgeous in its way.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it is strikingly shot, this film, and it does have that great sort of documentary quality of like, we don't have permits, so everything this is what life looked like. Set dressing, what's that? We just walked in front of a thing and we filmed it. It is bleak, but there is a real beauty to this. And the making of it is really fascinating too. Like it was supposed to star Peter Falk.
Oh, really?
Yeah, who was a friend of the directors from like their theater days. But then Peter Falk got one of his first movie roles in a film called Murder Inc. And so Barron had to step up and star in it as well. And he shot the film with equipment that he smuggled out of Cuba because he had been an assistant director on Errol Flynn's last film, this movie called Cuban Rebel Girls, but they had to abandon the shoot when the Castro Revolution happened. And so the producers of that movie were like, yeah, you can have all the equipment that we used, but you got to go get it. And he did.
Yeah. So this is a great movie. Buckle up.
Yeah.
You can make a whole noir film out of that trip to get the film equipment.
Sure.
Yeah, this really is what I'm going to call Jillian's conception of New York at Christmas time. It's definitely embodying that
Well,
bleak
even the
vibe.
Santa was sinister when he's walking through Rockefeller Center. His voice, like, slide down my chimney.
Well, now we we know it's
Woo!
real. That was really the Santa in
Yeah.
1960.
That's so okay. I wrote that in my notes. Like, whoa, this is a terrifying Santa. Lock the doors, hide your way.
That's
It
the
was
Santa
like-
people wanted then.
It was a
We
beautiful.
didn't know any better.
It was a beautiful use of tinsel. I have to highlight that too. And that early party scene, I thought it was stunning and beautiful, and that was very attractive. Also, the peanut race.
Oh yeah,
They do.
there's a
Oh,
peanut
right.
race with they're pushing the peanut with their noses.
Yeah, nothing
floor.
sanitary about anything. Yeah.
Challenging Matt to that.
You're on.
Yes.
Yeah. I really loved the documentary aspects of this movie where you could tell you were on the streets of New York, 1960, Christmas time, and just soaking that in. It created such an incredible atmosphere. And I'm teasing Jillian a little bit, but I think she's absolutely correct. In places like that where you're really inundated with so much Christmas, if you are feeling any kind of depression or isolation, it really amplifies those feelings. And so it seemed like this actually like perfect pairing of this like really exuberant exterior on the streets and this inner turmoil of this hitman who has a very bleak, I think even relative to other hitmen, probably one of the most depressing guys in the field. This is a movie that starts with the lines,
They
remembering-
shun him at club meetings.
exactly. They're like, not this guy again. Okay. He's an energy vampire. The film starts with these lines, remembering out of the black silence, you were born in pain. You were born with hate and anger built in. Took a slap on the backside to blast out a scream, and then you knew you were alive. And it was just like, the minute that line came out, I was like, okay, what did I get myself
Buckle
into?
up.
For a ride here, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's narrated by Lionel Stander, who is again this sort of like legendary character actor, probably better known to people like Dave's and my age for a 70s TV show called Heart to Heart, where he played the sort of wisecracking butler to a pair of gorgeous millionaires who solved crimes. But yeah, he's got one of those really gravelly voices.
Yeah.
And every line out of his mouth is like freshman who just read Kafka for the first time,
Right.
like bleakness.
Well, his hands
Oh.
are either always cold or hot. My hands
Oh.
were cold, and then I was feeling hate, and then they were hot, and I felt more hate. The hate and the hands, they're always a pair.
But I love the fact that like the director clearly like Christmas was baked into this thing. It wasn't just, oh, we're shooting in December, I guess we've got these decorations. Like he clearly designed this whole thing to spotlight how much of an outsider this guy was. That yeah, what Julian says about New York, this festivity and joy is going on around you, and it just puts in relief how lonely and dismal your life might be. It's not. Did you guys watch Dash and Lily on Netflix?
I tried once.
Christmas is awesome, but yeah, I think for most people it feels more like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Stop mocking me, New York.
Yeah, I also love that it's in second person. The
Mhm.
you do this,
Mm.
you do that
Yeah.
as it's narrating. And it made me feel like I was in like an immersive game, kind of like, yeah, I'm the hitman. I'm doing these things. That narration, even just putting it from that point of view, really makes this a really unique film.
It's that Oregon Trail touch.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, onward to Chicago for my pick, the most obvious one. Look, we could not do a topic about A Very Merry Me Time, Holidays Alone, or characters who have that experience in film without talking about Home Alone. It just would have been a major oversight. So you're all
Right.
welcome. I had to pick the basic one. I had to. So if you've never seen Home Alone, it's about Kevin McAllister, an 8-year-old boy who, when his family accidentally leaves him behind for Christmas, proves he's basically the MacGyver of holiday survival. But while they're out fa la la in Paris, Kevin's living the dream, eating junk food. He's sliding down the stairs. He's foiling 2 bumbling burglars with the most horrific booby traps that would make Wile E. Coyote proud, but also cringe a little because they're so violent. Sure, he misses his family eventually, but Kevin's solo holiday is the ultimate mix of chaos and cozy, and he's got the aftershave burn to prove it. This is streaming on Disney Plus, and this is obviously a holiday classic. I think it's fair to say. By the time it was out of theaters, it was the 3rd highest grossing film ever at that
Of all
Of all
time.
time, yeah.
Yeah, of all time. This is a huge movie. I think I read in Have Yourself a Very Movie Christmas, Alonzo, that it was Gerald Ford's one of his favorite movies. Was that in your book or did I read that
Oh,
elsewhere?
that might have been somewhere else. I don't know that
I
I
wrote that in the liner notes
typoed.
that Alonzo needs to add this to a new edition. It's a John Hughes film starring Macaulay Culkin, and I guess like his second John Hughes rodeo after Uncle Buck.
Yes.
But this is obviously his major starring vehicle. Catherine O'Hara is Macaulay Culkin's mother in the film. And this is a film that's always been very close to my heart because I am from the Chicagoland area. And this movie just represents that region like most John Hughes movies do, just so perfectly. And the fact that they did shoot this in the winter, at least the exteriors, quite a lot. You actually have a lot of dead trees that are lit up. It looks accurate to a Christmas movie. It doesn't look like they put on Christmas. And the snow is even real in a lot of scenes. Also, they filmed the interiors in a local high school, New Trier High School. So the inside of that house is actually the soundstage was a high school, which I thought was an interesting fact. Honestly, my favorite thing about this movie is just the set design because not only does it connect to my childhood at that time, it has that decor, but it's Christmasified. Everything's done in red or green. And yes, those colors were popular in that era, but it's really done that way. The entire movie is red and green. And I thought that's such a wonderful choice. And as I get older and revisit this film, the hijinks of the slapstick related to the violence is less appealing and honestly more horrifying every time I rewatch it. But what comes out is the heart and emotion, especially the storyline with the neighbor that they are
Yeah.
all
Oh,
afraid and think
totally.
he's like the murderer that lives next door. But really just has a family rift with his son and wants to see his granddaughter. And there's a really heartwarming scene in a church that I think is very beautiful, probably the most beautiful scene in the entire movie. And so I think overall, it just gives you that perfect gift package of sweet, but also a little bit of salty.
I was too old to be like the target demo for that film when it opened. I was already in my 20s. So it's a movie that I've come around to in ensuing years because the generations behind me, Generation Hocus Pocus, let's call them, grew up with that movie and really it imprinted on them. But I do remember like all of the sort of Home Alone ripoffs after that one. The ones where like kids would keep their parents like locked in the basement until they decided they weren't going to get divorced anymore. House Arrest, that was a movie. That was a real movie. But so many of them were like, let's do the kids bonk adults on the head stuff, but they totally missed the sentimental part that I think really leavens the story and makes it more than just like Keystone Cops kind of stuff. Yeah, the whole subplot about the neighbor is great. You can draw a line from Ebenezer Scrooge to George Bailey to Kevin McAllister. All of these guys have some wish that they want to do something else. Ebenezer Scrooge thinks that like send all the poor people to the warehouse. What is it?
The workhouses.
The workhouse. Thank you.
Yeah.
George Bailey thinks life would be better if he weren't alive. Kevin wishes that his family would go away and that he could be by himself. And then something either supernatural or accidental comes along to give them their wish and give them a peek at what that would look like. And they come to realize, oh no, I don't want that. I want what I have around me, what I've been taking for granted, what these people who are around me, who love me and care about me, that I've been ignoring. And so I think he's a Christmas hero on that level in terms of what he goes through over the course of the movie.
I really enjoyed watching this again, and I saw things with new eyes. I caught John Candy. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, you caught him.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
Yes.
a planes, trains, and automobiles reference.
Yep.
That was fun to see. But my coziness comes from the off-camera stuff. So Macaulay, when he was filming this, actually felt very alone in his own life because his dad was his guardian, and his dad wanted to be an actor. And so he said many times, my dad was jealous of me. And imagine coming home from a day of set and being locked in a hotel room with someone who hates you. I think this was close to his exact words. So now as an adult, he's showing his son the film and kind of having a healing experience through that, which I think is very nice and cozy. Kieran Culkin, though, will not show his son this movie yet because of the reasons you stated, Matt. Too scary, especially the biting of the fingers off.
Macaulay Culkin is touring with this movie this year, which is
really?
In very kind of smaller towns. I was like, oh, is it coming to LA? But no, I think it's no offense, obviously, to the smaller towns, but I would love to.
We're going to get letters now, Jillian.
Yeah,
Why do the small towns
Cosmopolitan.
get everything?
Give me Macaulay.
There was a great article online a few years ago that posited the idea that Kevin grows up to be Jigsaw.
Oh my God, Alonso. I was on a Reddit thread and I saw the Jigsaw thing, but also the canon that people come up with. The older gentleman, so I forgot his name, They think that he was salting the sidewalk so often because his wife tripped and fell and died. And that's why him and the son are at odds. So now he's just overdoing it.
Oh, that's bleak.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've
there's
not seen
actually
this movie nearly enough times for that kind of theorizing.
yeah, people are thinking about this movie a lot, and they're still thinking about it a lot today, and on Reddit, where I spend too much of my time. So it's not cozy.
And also the mother's love aspect of it, I think, is very cozy. And I do love like that cross country, really international adventure of Catherine O'Hara finding her way back to her son. No, once she learns that Kevin's alone, realizes that horribly on the plane to Paris. That is also a very heartwarming scene at the end when they're finally reunited. Very beautiful.
Yeah, when he turns around, he thinks he hears someone opening the door, and he walks into the room, and no one's there. But then he takes a beat, and he turns around and sees Catherine O'Hara. That was such a sweet moment. And also, the sibling rivalry was really intense in this. There's some lines that I wrote down. I'm like, wow, Kevin's fighting for an inch of his life. Uncle Frank, yeah, he's a nasty little man.
Very inappropriate.
Dave, do you have any thoughts on Home Alone?
Almost none. And here's why.
That's okay. That is okay.
I was also in my 20s when it came out, and I saw it in its first theatrical run, and I found it completely entertaining. I had a great time watching it, and then I forgot about it. I somehow didn't have to participate in the global pop culture like juggernaut phenomenon that it was. I went to a movie, I had a good time. I was not a film critic. I didn't have to think too hard about it. I thought, oh, John Hughes is going to do this kind of thing now. Okay, fine. All these years later, people ask me my opinion about it, and now I'm an actual film critic, and I think I don't have an opinion. It is as close as you can get, for me personally, to just purely a fun time that doesn't have to stick around in your mind after you watch it. Having said that, I'm always here for Catherine O'Hara. Doesn't matter what she's doing. I want to watch it. I've even watched more Schitt's Creek than I ever felt I needed to just because of her. Now, there was a French movie that existed alongside this.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Dial Code Santa Claus. Do you guys know about this?
No.
No.
This was a film that came out in 1989. So it hit theaters in France 18 months before Home Alone opened. And it has a very similar plot line. It's about this kid who gets on this, it's called a Minitel, like a very early kind of computer bulletin board system. And he's like asking about the existence of Santa Claus, and this kind of dangerous guy says, "Oh, I'm Santa Claus. Where do you live?" And he like, even though the kid doesn't tell him, he figures it out. And so the kid, who like is very into technology and creating these wild devices, comes up with all these booby traps to keep the guy dressed as Santa Claus from coming into his high-tech house. And the French guy who made it at one point threatened to sue 20th Century Fox and John Hughes, but never did it. But the movie was never really seen officially in the United States until 2018.
Wow.
When the American Genre Film Archive did like a restoration and released it. So I just saw it a few years ago, and it's bananas, but it is so similar to Home Alone in so many ways. But I'm sure it's probably one of those, oh, we're both making movies about meteors, coincidences that happens. But it's worth checking out just in terms of it is not cozy. It is a lot darker and a lot more grim. And like the guy does kill some people before he gets to the kid's house and stuff.
Oh, so they're building stakes. It's not goofy Joe Pesci.
Oh yeah, no. But the thing is, like, he's dangerous, but also treats the whole thing like it's a game of hide and seek. So it's very off-putting, this bad guy. There's also a horror movie called Better Watch Out about a kid who makes very Home Alone-ish traps, which feels like, what if Kevin were a somewhat twisted teenager?
The French one is now being referred to as Deadly Games in its American
I think that's
Blu-ray release.
I think the AGFA Blu-ray is called Deadly Games, but
Yeah.
it's also known as Dial Code Santa Claus or Dial Code Père Noël or something.
Yeah.
Well, that movie sounds deeply unhinged, but you sold me on it.
All right. Well, that concludes our trip to the movie theater to discuss, again, films about individuals who are spending the holidays alone and things we could learn about their solo experience. I want to thank you, first of all, Dave and Alonso, for sharing these films with us, and Jillian. Christmas Again was great. I really enjoyed these. And you're welcome for me making you watch Home Alone again.
And they were saying, he saw it once and forgot about it. I never saw it until 2008 when I started working on Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas. It was, I guess I gotta watch this now.
It's fun to revisit.
I get why people love it.
Yeah.
It is charming, and I get why kids dig it, and then I get why like adults hang on to it because I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of things that have a lot there, we're about to go into our little quote segment. That's right. It's time for some words of warmth. This is the part of the holiday party where everyone just reads aloud quotes. So this one is from Robert Altinger, and it is: "The darkness of the whole world cannot swallow the glowing of a candle." I loved the beauty of this idea that even in solitude, one can create light and warmth for oneself. And I think all of the characters in these films, with maybe the exception of Frank Bono, really their little glowing candle really does keep that darkness of the whole world at bay and doesn't even end up warming those around them.
Lovely imagery too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mine is very similar in sentiment. It's what a lovely surprise to discover how unlonely being alone can be. That's from Ellen Burstyn. And I just think, well, it's not a surprise for me, but I think for a lot of people, it can be, especially if you're someone who thrives in groups, you're an extrovert. And from elementary school to all the way to college and beyond, we're pushed to be in groups and do things with people and be social and put yourself out there. But there really is just this wonderful relationship waiting to be had, and I don't think enough people cultivate it. And when they realize that, it's such a beautiful experience, and there's no fear in being alone. I love being alone, and I don't have any weird guilt about it anymore, because I think sometimes I would be like, why am I not out doing things with other people? But now I'm just in my own little corner of the world, giving my cats their advent calendar
That's
and
right.
living my best life.
Absolutely. And there are those times you just need to charge your battery.
Mhm.
And it can just feel so nice to give yourself that very merry me time. I'm really nailing the title of this episode over and over again, but really give yourself that time to rest and recharge. The holiday season itself can be breakneck. Like, it's just a lot of socializing, there's a lot of things to do. If you're Alonzo Duralde, you're just always on podcasts for like every day of the week. So it can be exhausting. And so this is a great reminder to just take that time for yourself. And just like a lonely Christmas tree salesman, just bask in the glow of the holiday with your by yourself. Let's warm our lonely but cozy hearts with a candle review. Jillian, you've got the candle this week. What are we sniffing?
And what a whopper it is. So I was like a little kid typing into Google "lonely candle Christmas." Because there's not a
My
lot
favorite Dolly
of
Parton song.
there's not a lot of products available for that theme. And so I also went on Etsy and I thought, okay, maybe there's a cool Home Alone candle, but it's just the cliche, oh, you filthy animal candle. Everyone and their brother is selling that candle. So I dug a little bit deeper and I found a candle from this company, and I apologize I'm not pronouncing it correctly, Candier. It's very girl boss candles because a lot of the candles have all sparkles in them and that big, bulky black text. I bought All I Want for Christmas is Sleep, which it feels very appropriate. I was deciding between that and Daddy Claus because, like, oh, well, I mean, there's, a little sexy Santa night by yourself. It's like, I don't know if the cozies would go for that. We're going for sleep this time. And the description says Santa baby, slip a pure silk sleep mask and a pair of noise canceling earbuds under the tree for me. The holidays are hectic AF. So there you go, girl boss sentiment. And you deserve more serious R&R. Kick back, relax, and take some time for yourself. It sells for $36 and it smells like spiced boozy eggnog, amaretto, rum, vanilla, and cream. I said this many times on the podcast. My biggest fear is buying a candle that has a vanilla scent and only getting the vanilla. I have to say, they did a good job. I will be buying these expensive candles from Candier. Again, it has a lovely kick to it. The spice is really coming through. It's a sweet smell, but not overpowering. It always has a cherry kind of scent to it, spicy cherry. And it pairs really well with the cream. I love a cream scented candle. It's a nice offshoot of vanilla. where you're not getting that cloying scent and it's just a delightful taste for the senses. I was a little bit scared because of the sparkles that are in every candle, but it worked. I like it. They got me. I'm in.
So those sparkles are advertised as plant-based eco glitter. When the candle is burning, like how does the eco glitter hold up like through that experience? Does it create like an extra shimmer to it or does it dissipate quickly? What's that like?
That did add a layer of terror for me because I sometimes even forget to turn off the candles and get reprimanded by my partner. An ongoing thing and moving my shoes out of the way. It's a nice little. It's I say a shimmer. It doesn't suggest that I was going to put my house on fire. They're slowly melting down. They're embedded into the wax, so I don't know what's going to happen to them. I don't know if I'm going to get a sparkly surprise at the end. I haven't gotten that far because I've been savoring it.
The scent profile sounds delicious. Honestly, I want to eat this candle. Like I want some boozy eggnog right now.
I just am concerned about a candle that has sleep in the title because I think you're going to nod off and like go all night. That's dangerous.
Right. Yeah, they have a lot of fun Christmas candles. If you want that sexy Santa vibe, go for Daddy Claus.
Ooh.
Or get something tree scented for your Christmas again guy.
That's true. There's something for everyone on this site. The only thing, and I don't want to be a hater, but the shipping took a long time. But it's the holidays, so I'll tip my hand to say as a hat for putting in the hard work to get all the candles out. So if you're going to buy this for Christmas, do it now because you might not get it.
Do it next September.
How are you two doing over there with your scented candles? I know you've been into the DS and Durga line and portable Xmas tree.
We don't have that one this year.
No?
We didn't do that one this year. Our go-to is always the Ralph Lauren holiday
Right.
candle,
Lovely.
which I wait all year for.
I just wanted to hear you say those words.
What else is really nice in our bathroom right now
Mm.
is the Diptyque Fig scented candle. It's really nice. And it's perfect for a bathroom-sized room.
That sounds lovely. I really wanted to get the wood fire diptyque, but I ended up going budget instead. We reviewed that candle. It was fine. But it's not quite the same quality, of course, as
No.
diptyque is.
I'm sure this has been discussed ad nauseum, but I do love a wood wick candle whenever I can find them because it's just that the crackle sound.
crackle, yeah.
is so cozy.
It can be very cozy or very alarming if you're not expecting it.
This is
Yes.
true. Spark flies off it, then I don't know.
Yeah. It was burned down Matt's apartment with a gift from a listener.
Yeah. That was a Cozy Awards we'll never forget.
No.
That is all the time we have today. Before we trudge off into the snow like Frank Bono in a blast of silence, Dave and Alonzo, where can listeners keep up with you?
Let's see. You can follow the show Linoleum Knife. We're Linoleum Cast on Instagram and Blue Sky and Facebook. And then individually, I'm Alonzo.Duralde at Instagram and A Duralde on Blue Sky. Dave is D Leland White everywhere, pretty much.
My great middle name, Leland.
It is fantastic.
Yeah. D. Leland White on Instagram and Blue Sky. And if you're feeling very Christmassy and you want to look at our Christmas tree, it has its own Instagram account because we've been collecting ornaments for 35 years. We are old people and we have so many of them now that it takes an unreasonably large tree to contain them. And that's what we put into our too small apartment every year. You have to position tables and human beings around it. It does not budge for anyone.
So yeah, check out the Instagram. And, as always, just a reminder.
Did I say what the Instagram was
Oh, did
called?
you not?
I don't even know if I did.
DXAX Tree, because it's a collab. And if you're feeling seasonal, pick up my books, Have Yourself a Movie Little Christmas, and I'll Be Home for Christmas Movies, a guide to Hallmark movies that I wrote with the gentleman from the Deck the Hallmark podcast.
And check out Alonzo's new book, Hollywood Pride. It's a great stocking stuffer if your stocking is very sturdy and can handle very heavy objects.
If your stocking is the size of a coffee table.
That's right. Alonzo, I see Hollywood Pride everywhere I go. I saw it at Warner Brothers and the gift shop. I saw it in Vancouver. Yeah.
Please take pictures. I
Yeah,
love
I was
seeing
gonna
it out in the
say,
wild.
take
I
pics.
did. I do, and I never send them to you. There's a whole section of my phone that is like your books in the wild that I just never somehow get around to sending you.
The thought counts, though. I appreciate it.
Thank you all for listening. We do have a quick shout out. Thank you to Steph F. for joining our Patreon. Again, you can support the show at patreon.com/allthingscozy. And thank you, Steph, for supporting us. It means the world, especially during the holiday season. Keeps us feeling very festive. And we're really excited to launch a whole new year. It's going to be a whole new year next year. Believe it or not, 2025, a whole new book club, exciting books we're reading. In our book club, actually, this month, we're reading Midnight at the Christmas Bookshop. And it's as cozy as it sounds. So if you want to hear our thoughts on that book or read along with us, check out our Patreon.
Give me a reason to get my steps in. I walk to the mailbox. I have a mailbox near my house now. They removed the mailbox from my old apartment. I would go down the block to this one mailbox and it wasn't there one day. Now I have a mailbox. You better not take it away.
They're always pulling the rug out from under you.
It's a joy to write those cards. Mail rant aside, I really enjoy it. I love sending out the mail.
Yeah, give our merry little All Things Cozy elf a reason to get her steps and mail you some All Things Cozy swag.
Yeah.
Well, Alonzo and Dave, thank you again for joining us. It's so great to see you. We missed you. And we hope you have a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And we hope
Well,
our
too.
listeners have a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Happy holidays.
And we hope the whole world
Stays
stays
cozy.
Cozy.
Ho, ho, ho.